Thank you for joining us on WFMY Plus for our live coverage of No Kings protests happening all around the country, including right here in the Triad. On the left, you can see what looks like on West Wendover Avenue in Greensboro, where thousands are expected to gather over the next few hours. And on the right, you can see a live look at the protests happening in Dallas. Now, this map helps show just how many protests are happening in our nation. You can barely make out where North Carolina is with the amount of pins. Good afternoon. I'm Giselle Thomas, and thank you for joining us. Millions of Americans are gathering for these protests with the main message saying, quote, "America has no kings and the power belongs to the people," end quote. And as you saw earlier, one of these protests are underway in Greensboro. Let's go out to our WFMY News 2's Lauren Tier. Now, Lauren, the protest in Wendover is just getting underway. We can see some people lined up. What is it looking like out there?
That's right, Giselle. There are dozens of people already here on both sides of West Wendover. You can see them over across the street from me, as well as right here beside me. We've got signs, American flags, and I'm sure you can hear all the car horns honking. That's been going on for as long as we've been here. It's just been a cacophony of car horns honking as these people stand up and down this street holding their signs and protesting the current administration. Some of the signs say things like "Dump Trump" and "Free the Press." These people are out here using their First Amendment right to protest the Trump administration. Again, they've come out here with homemade signs. There are still people parking and walking up to, again, have their voices heard. And I know you can still hear all of those car horns and see those American flags just lining up and down the street. Like I said, there's about dozens of people here at this point, but they do expect there to be a larger crowd as the minutes go on. Giselle?
Yes, I wanted to ask about the overall theme that you're seeing. I know organizers made it very clear that they wanted this to be peaceful and that everyone's gathering together. What are some of the notions that you're getting out there? How is everyone? I know I see some rally reminders that say smile and greet others, lift your voice.
Right now, everything is very peaceful. I haven't seen any yelling or any fighting or any violence of any sort. It seems to me that people are just kind of standing on these sidewalks, holding up their signs, telling cars to honk, and just waving and, you know, voicing their opinions, but all in a very peaceful way. Again, no violence or anything of that nature that I've seen since I've been here.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. And just to go over, there are some reminders that No Kings put out saying lead with love, not anger, smile and greet others. Now, we do know that the No Kings movement has a national momentum and how it's resonating differently here in Greensboro than other places. Now, this is not the first time that we've seen No Kings protests here in the Triad. This video shows demonstrations in the Triad back in June, and this happened in a large part of the protest with the military parade in D.C. that marked the Army's 250th anniversary. We saw protests in Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point, and Lexington, and crowds in Winston-Salem were a bit bigger because of it also being Pride Day. Now, there are 4 main protests this time around. Lauren is at one on Wendover in Greensboro, and that goes on until 1 p.m. Another one starts at the courthouse downtown at noon. Now, police are expected to have a presence at these just to make sure that everyone can protest peacefully. And in Lexington, the protest is also underway. In Winston-Salem, the demonstration will start at 1:30 at City Hall, and police there say that they'll have little involvement. Now, before the protests got underway, we talked to organizers about the meaning behind these demonstrations. Here's what one had to say to us.
That's what's happening right now in our country. Is there is hatred, there is ego, there is greed, there is all kinds of horrible things trying to take hold. But as a Quaker, I believe that there is that of God in every single person, and that there is light that can come out of every single person, and that there is more light in the world than there is darkness. And that's what I plan on seeing, and what I have seen at event after event with Indivisible and with No Kings is all these bright shining lights showing up to just dispel the darkness and lead us out of this fascist attempt of a takeover.
And so far, we haven't seen any comments from President Trump on these No Kings demonstrations.
We refer to it by its more accurate description, the Hate America rally, okay? And I'm not sure how anybody can refute that. They're opposed to law enforcement, they're opposed to military, and their votes show it over and over. That's the collection of voices that you'll hear tomorrow that the Democrats will go out and raise their hands with and cheer with. And some of these people are so blinded by their hatred of President Donald Trump that they can't find one reason to celebrate America or all that we've accomplished and continue to accomplish under this new administration.
And let's go ahead and take a live look at some of the protests that's happening in other parts of the country. Right now, we are looking at the one in the Dallas area. There's a series of protests happening there. I actually took a look at the map and saw that within this area, there's about half a dozen. You can see some of these signs saying no kings. Looks like the camera's moving around just a little bit, but still lots of protests going on there. And a series of protests are happening here. Now, just to put into perspective, there's more than 2,500 protests that are expected nationwide, going back to not only in the Dallas area, they're all over. I took a look at that No Kings map and was able to see that there were several protests also going on in Florida. Something else to point out is that there were several protests going on in the key battleground states. So not only here in North Carolina, we're also including Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Nevada. So lots of activity all around the U.S. at this time with this No Kings protest. Again, if you're just joining us, just as a reminder, there's a series of No Kings protests that's going on all across the nation, including here in North Carolina and here within the Triad area. Something else to point out when I was doing some research, going back and seeing what we have just in our area, we know that some of the organizers had said that they are protesting against some of the ICE raids that we've seen, also some of the things that the administration has done in regards to freezing some federal funds. Just taking a look at some of the demographics that we have in our area, I was able to see some state Census Bureau information that says that the North Carolina foreign-born population increased an 8-fold since 1990. It also says that at least in Guilford County, 11% of those people are in rural communities. And on top of that, a lot of the different jobs that these people have include things as agriculture and things like that. Now, coming back here in Guilford, we're going to check in back with Lauren Tier. We know that she's over on West Wendover. Tell us, Lauren, how are things looking? It looks like there's more people that have gathered.
That's right. Well, in just the last few minutes, we've moved a little bit down the sidewalk here on West Wendover, but there are definitely a pretty constant stream of people parking and walking up to these sidewalks with their signs. So you can see that one sign that says "No King." You can see a person dressed up as a penguin. I've seen signs that say "Honk for Democracy," and the people that are driving by are certainly able to read those signs because you can hear them honking pretty consistently. It's been like that for the past 15 minutes that I've been here. Again, nothing of the violent sort going on that we've seen so far. It's all been very peaceful. You see people waving at the cars, asking them to honk, and waving their signs around. Again, all of these people just using their First Amendment right to peacefully protest the current administration. I see people who are sitting on the sidewalk in their chairs out here. You see someone holding a crown with a red circle through it, again, saying "No Kings here in America." These people are out here again, just like they were this summer. Again, they expect this crowd to grow to potentially thousands of people in the next few hours. But like I said, as of right now, nothing of the violent sort that we have seen, all very peaceful. Most of these people are just lined up here on the sidewalk, sitting or standing, again, waving at these cars and holding their signs. Live on West Wendover in Greensboro, Lauren Tier, WFMY News 2.
And just want to give you guys some perspective here where Lauren is in West Wendover. West Wendover is not too far from I-40, which is really the gateway to so many other cities that are nearby within the Triad. So it truly shows keeping a presence on such a large part within our area. Now, there are rules to be aware of with these types of protests. First, it's important to note that you are allowed to wear a mask unless it is only for a health or religious reasons. Now, if you are wearing a mask for one of those reasons and the police ask you to take it off to identify you, you must take it off or you could be arrested. Also, you have to have a permit to protest in certain spots, which these demonstrations do have at this time. You also cannot protest just anywhere. It's not allowed on private property. Now, these protests nationwide are happening as President Trump sends National Guard troops to different cities all across the U.S. It also comes as ICE enforcement takes a spotlight across the country. Right now, Trump is asking the Supreme Court to allow deployment in Chicago. An appeals court previously blocked the administration from the deployment of the National Guard there. Now let's go ahead and take another live look again at the protest that we have in Dallas. Was able to take a look at the No Kings map. Let's see, you can see there's people. Looks like this man is holding his child on his arm as he's holding up a sign. You can see there's some American flags that are waving back and forth. Something that you see, the man is smiling. You're seeing kind of people just standing around, doing there and progressing and saying how they feel about No Kings as they're gathering together. When it comes to saying No Kings, I know that we had organizers tell us in the past some rally reminders saying that they want people to lift their voice with positivity, also keeping it clean and respectful. Now, there's something else that I wanted to point you guys to, going back to some of that data that I talked about earlier with the U.S. Census Bureau. So going back to some of the jobs that we're seeing a lot of foreign-born populations take, the state says that a lot of them will work in rural counties, and that includes manufacturing agricultural goods. So that includes food processing, forest products, millings, things of that nature. And if you're just joining us, we are covering the No Kings protest that we know there are several locations that's happening, not only here in Greensboro, but also there's another one happening in Winston-Salem. And also we know there's another one happening in Lexington. Now, this is all in part of the nationwide effort that's all across the country as a whole, where thousands, millions of people are gathered together. Now, as we're talking about this, we're going to be going back to our Lauren Tier in just a few minutes. We know that she's over on West Wendover. We've seen lots of people gather over this time. I'm seeing some signs behind you, Lauren. Tell us a little bit about just what are people telling you now?
Yeah, Giselle, people are out here still, and they're still showing up in streams. We've walked up and down this sidewalk now. It's hundreds of feet of people lining on both sides of West Wendover, again, holding their signs up, waving their American flags, and waving at the cars passing by, asking them to honk for democracy. Even on the other side, you can see people stretching all the way down. On the corner here, we have a sign that says honk for democracy. And since I've been here, the cars are certainly able to read those signs. We've heard cars honking for minutes upon minutes, many of them just driving past on their way to whatever they're doing on a Saturday afternoon. But as of right now, it has been completely peaceful here. We've seen no signs of violence. All of these people just out here on the sidewalk. At this point, I can actually hear some people behind me starting a chant. I can't quite make out what they're saying, but it does appear that we have some organized chanting going on at this point as the crowd continues to grow. Giselle?
Yes, Lauren, I wanted to ask, are the messages and the signs that you're seeing echoing the national No Kings themes? And also, I know you mentioned not really seeing that much police, but wondering if you could tell me about the age demographic. Are you seeing, what types of people are you seeing out there?
Well, it's really interesting because walking up and down the sidewalk, we've obviously passed dozens of people at this point, and I've seen people of every age group, all the way from, I don't know, probably in their 80s down to small children. I've seen a couple families. There was a sign back down the street of a dad that was holding a sign that said, "Dads over kings, we get things done," and he had two small children with him. So the age demographic definitely is far-reaching. There is someone of every age here, it appears, maybe not infants, but young children all the way to elder people. And all of these signs are pretty much supporting the same message that we've heard from the national level, calling for democracy over fascism, calling for democracy over a kingship. And these people are out here using their First Amendment rights to demand democracy for what they believe is an administration that is not doing what they want. They want to be heard. Giselle?
Thank you, Lauren. And we'll continue to cover these protests on WFMY later this afternoon. Keep an eye out on your phone for the next notification on our screen. And like we said earlier, there is another protest happening at the Guilford County Courthouse in just a little bit. They are happening in Winston-Salem and also in Lexington. We appreciate you for joining us. Thank you. And make sure to turn in on WFMY News 2 at 6 right here on WFMY Plus.